Hello and welcome to Heather and Hops. My name is Kat, or Catherine, and I'm a knitter based in Hertfordshire in the United Kingdom. This is my little space where I document my knitting journey and my fibre journey and try and kind of cultivate a community. Welcome if you're new. If you're returning, it's lovely to see you again. I am very grateful that I seem to have the lovely group of people that join me week on week. I hope this finds you happy, content, perhaps with a beverage of sorts, something to make, maybe some human company, I don't know. I have an orange and cinnamon today, like a orange slice and a little twirl of cinnamon. Don't know, just fancied it. It was quite sunny when I woke up, and then it suddenly went grey and overcast, and it kind of had a bit of I daren't say autumn, but it had that kind of feel, and I think that kind of turned me on to this. And for about 30 seconds just before I sat down, the sun came out, and I was like, oh, maybe I'm actually going to get warm, but it still disappeared. But yeah, I'm very excited to have something non-caffeinated. It's a little bit later on in the day. I've had a very productive morning. We had a really nice weekend, and I feel like I just came home feeling quite refreshed and rejuvenated, and did a few things that I haven't done in a while, just a bit of deep cleaning and things that just really wanted to get done. I haven't done a single stitch of knitting today, haven't done a single bit of spinning today, but I'm hoping to do a bit of that while I edit later on. Oh, here comes trouble. Little Audrey is out the door. She's been asleep all morning. I'll just get her. Here's the little house tiger. You're going to go on an adventure though now. This is Audrey. No making noise, mind. I'm going to move that because she will really have fun with it. This isn't the sound that we want. Alex and I went to York this weekend, which was really lovely. I'm not sure what footage I'll put on the end of this. There's a little bit from York, but just the tiniest bit. I had a weekend where we were surrounded by friends, and it was just quite nice to be rather than filming. Sometimes it's nice to film and capture the memories, but this time it just felt right to just be. It was really lovely. We went on a really nice walk around a hall. I can't remember what it was called. Something like Bellinghuffington Hall or something, but it was beautiful. And then we walked through the city yesterday, and we ended up doing quite a bit of walking, which was nice. Alex did the park run on Saturday morning at York Racecourse, and I went off and did my little run and some exercise on logs and stuff. The usual, which was really nice too. So yeah. So it was really nice, and it's really nice to be back here feeling a little bit more at ease, I want to say, and kind of missing humans a lot. For those of you who've been here a while, you know how I've been at home for quite a lot. I know we all have, but prior to the 2 years of doom that we encountered, I had a year and a half where it was basically in the same situation. But it's really nice now. The more we're getting out and seeing friends, and I've got the energy to keep up, and mostly keep up. I was still in bed, I think, second earliest every night. Anyway, today I am wearing my koi viewer from Caitlin Hunter of Boyland Knitworks. This is a Aran weight pattern maybe, or DK. I knit it using a fingering weight yarn and a mohair lace yarn held together throughout everything. It features colourwork and a little bit of texture, which I quite like. I love to knit like I really love to knit colourwork, it's one of my favourites, but I find myself lately not knitting it, and I think that's more because I end up wearing more of my non-colourwork patterns, and I'm not really sure why that is yet. It's not that I'm not wearing these, because I do. I guess I like basics and having them quite interchangeable. I think I knitted the second smallest size maybe, as where my gauge sat, I wanted it to be a little bit denser, I wanted it to be a little bit lighter weight, and I just wanted it to fit like this. So I can't remember what adjustments I did, but I did make a few adjustments. The colours are Pigeon Fancier is the mohair I held in the teal section. I can't remember what the fingering yarn is. And in the light section we have Natural Sock by Woolly Mammoth Fibre Company in the Jasmine colourway, and then we have a mohair lace from a Knitter's Homestead in the Fog colourway. Yeah, I really love this item. It's just quite a nice one. I'm wearing it with my little rebel dress, which is a strappy dress, knitted. Affectionately called that because it's knit using alpaca, which isn't the most traditionally suitable yarn for dresses nor summer knits, but I really like this item and I wear it really quite a lot. There is no pattern for it, but there is a PDF sort of recipe on Ko-Fi. It's free, it's there if anyone would like one. Yeah, so I think I'm quickly catching up on the knitting that I haven't shared, but I'm also knitting a lot less at the moment, and it's just a chatty one. I've been talking to friends recently and realising that I'm very grateful, how grateful I am, that my energy levels are no longer sort of part of my personality they're not at the front. I don't have to tell everyone why I can't come out all the time or why I can't do anything. It's really nice. But I think because I've got energy, I am trying to, while I have it, to put it into things, especially around the house, that just make it feel a bit nicer, since I am in the house so much. But I am really excited about knitting again, which, not that I lost any, I don't believe in knitting mojo for me personally, but not that I didn't have it. I've just got other priorities, and I think that's completely valid, and I think it's a bit of a shame that some people feel like they have to. We don't have to produce things. It's silly to produce things when we aren't being intentional with them, or we don't love them, or we're not really that interested. Cast something different on, or don't cast anything on at all, or try something different, or call someone else, you know. Anyway, all that to say, I might not have loads to show next week, but that's okay. That's totally fine. But this week we have quite a bit, and I don't really know where to start. Little Audrey sat at the bottom of where you are. This has been finished for a long time, so I'll quickly share this. It's not looking its finest. It's been worn a few times and due a wash. But this is the Pure Mesh Pullover by James N. Watts. It is a long sleeve top, knit flat and then seamed, using, I think it's lace weight yarn. I opted for a slightly heavier yarn. This is my second version because I really liked it so much that I wanted to knit a second one, and one in a more summery yarn. So the way this is constructed is you knit the front, you knit the back, then you do the collar if you want to. I did mine first, and then you knit the sleeves flat, but you attach them straight onto the shoulders and knit down and then seam it at the end. So it's, even though it is lace and it's really open, there is structure because of the seams that James has cleverly put in place. I think you have to be a little bit careful with weaving in ends on these items and putting them on and off. I haven't had an issue yet, I haven't snagged anything, but that's just something that James does mention in the patterns. This yarn is from Hobby, and I will do a video talking a bit more about some of their yarns. They very kindly sent me some with the understanding that I would do a review. It's taken me a while to get through it. I just want to be clear that I don't want to review stuff particularly unless I've been able to really use it, and I find that with knitting it's quite hard to, you know, show wear and get used to wear, so I'm gonna just go ahead without talking about the wear, because even on these sort of videos I don't know how anything's gonna wear until I really have worn it. These I've worn for quite a bit now, so I could talk about it, but we won't talk about that. But does that make sense? But yeah, this is the second one I knit. I knit the smallest size, and then I adjusted the sleeves. So I knit the second smallest size for the body and the smallest size for the sleeves, adjusting to make them a lot shorter. And I have written out what I did differently on my Ravelry page, which isn't something I always do. I did use the recommended needle size and everything. I think I might have done, yeah, I did a tubular cast off on here, which is cool. It's very easy. I am in awe and feel a bit silly for not of using the tubular cast off more. But this is the yarn. It is Hobby's alpaca silk, and it is 70% alpaca and 30% mulberry silk, and it is really soft. It's beautiful yarn. It is. What are you doing, Trouble? Who have you found? So I was sat on a really lovely call last week. She's found another spider, and I was sat having this video call, and Audrey was sat next to me, and she kept chirping and chasing something, and I didn't know what it was, and it turned out to be a spider, and she sat on it. It was a bit sad. Of all the ways to go, being sat on by Audrey is not the best. But this is, I really enjoyed knitting with it. It's lovely. It feels silky. There is more information about it on their website. I think they actually, which is one of the few things that I quite liked. While it's designed in Denmark, and I think this was made in Peru, it does actually give you a bit more information than some companies give about provenance, which is quite important to me. And this is colour 26. It's a lovely cherry red. But I really liked it, and this item, I've tried it out at a few shows to see if it did wear differently to my 100% wool version, and it is a little bit lighter. It feels a bit different when my temperature starts to go up, especially being indoors, dancing around. This was a little bit easier to wear without noticing such a drastic change, which surprised me, to be honest, and that might be just because there's none of the sort of toothy fibres sticking out. It's all just, for me personally, we should always say this, because I wear, like I say, I wear Icelandic wool next to skin. I don't have the most sensitive skin, but this is really lovely and very wearable if you are, and I think this goes with any style, if you need something for layering, even for sort of walks and climbing and hiking, those sort of things, this rolls into, I mean, this is being quite gentle on it because I'm being filmed, but you can roll this into almost nothing. I popped it in my bag on Saturday when we went for our walk, because whilst it was sunny, there was a really rather threatening wind, and I thought if I have this in my bag just as backup, it's another layer to put on, because it does make a big difference. So these are also not good for being sort of a little bit alternative with your clothing. It's actually kind of practical for a little bit of added warmth, and if you're really into layering. but oh, I just put it in my, I just popped it in my drink. But I really love James's patterns. The way they're written is very clear. He really goes into a lot of detail. And I think there is a tutorial on just guiding you through the stitches. I know that Lovely Woolly Witchcraft had a little bit of a moment where I got a message and was a bit, I mean, I still don't know what happened, but something went awry, so I sent another video. I think sometimes it happens when you're so used to reading something in a certain way. Sometimes there's like a little bit of a malfunction when you try and do it, but we managed to get there in the end, and hopefully she's getting through that pattern nicely now. But I really did like this yarn so much that I got Amanita Knits has just come back to Instagram and to designing after a little bit of a break. So that was very exciting, but she kind of gave away one pattern free to anyone that followed her, which I think was a really, really very generous thing to do. And obviously kind of in turn we can help lift her. But I used this yarn again for her golden oak top, which is proving to be a really nice one. It's a v-neck, which is unusual for me, but here it is. It's got a beautiful lace pattern which you start with. You repeat just a simple chart a few times and then you finish it, and then there's just a little bit of detail all the way up. It's very simple to do. Some decreases to create the shape, and then some simple straps which are grafted together. I knit the smallest size and I went down to a 3.5mm needle to get the gauge and fabric I was happy with, knowing that this does change quite a bit with wear. From my pure mesh, it opened up even more than I anticipated after blocking. This has stretched a little bit more vertically in the straps than I thought it might. I couldn't quite gauge that particularly well, so what I'm going to do is go in, unpick a few rows and regraft it together. It's totally fine and wearable, but I just want it to be a little bit higher up for personal preference and for ease of wearing. But it's a very simple pattern to follow, very straightforward. There are a few bits on there that might confuse people, and I've already spoken to Amanita about, just mentioned it. For example, on the second to last section there's a bit in between in there. There's a bit within one of the sentences where the pattern to end is written, so someone who hasn't maybe knitted quite so much might get a bit confused, but as long as, I think that will be updated very soon, so it shouldn't be an issue. But just for clarity, there was a few things that I was a bit like, I can carry on, but I would be hesitant for a very new knitter to do this completely without that knowledge, if that makes sense. But it's a gorgeous pattern. I think there's some, I can't remember what the sizing's like. James's pattern and is amazing for sizing. James is really on sizing, and I think spends quite a bit of time getting it right. This pattern's good. I think Caitlin's really working on improving sizing this year, which is really good to know. It's the reason that I struggle so much with releasing patterns and things that I've designed. Not that, it's just grading's difficult. It's difficult for someone that's never done it or trained, which I would really like to do. I've done a little bit of learning, but anyway, this is not why we're here. But yeah, this is a gorgeous pattern. Amanita has some really, really beautiful other patterns. I have one of her shawl patterns that I've been hoping to knit for a gift for a long time, but it just, there's always an N+1 when it comes to knitting, much like Alex's N+1 when it comes to bikes, even though we've recently got rid of a couple. They've not been scrapped, but they've gone on to greener pastures, so to speak. Yeah, there's just a lot of knitting to do, and actually I'm looking at the lovely yarn that Mary of Merry Little Makes gave to me when I met her for the first time, and maybe that would make a lovely... Yeah. Anyway, let's get back to really lovely to knit, a really nice item. I would probably knit this again, and I might do. I am bad for wanting to knit things multiple times though, and I don't think that's a bad thing, by the way. I don't really mean it's bad, it's just I am very tempted to knit multiple things multiple times. But that's why we buy patterns, because we have the ability to make them again, we can adjust them, we can make them for different people. I am going to knit a pure mesh out of 100% silk for one of my best friends for her birthday, which is coming up. I'm going to hopefully cast that on this week, and yeah, all about knitting things multiple times. I don't have my notes with me today, and by notes I mean I have a little post-it that has things that I try and remember to talk about, construction, or as you can tell I don't often stick to it even when I have it, but I'm quite enjoying freeform. I'm like freeform jazz today. Do you think I'm like freeform jazz, Audrey? Yes. I'm gonna hit pause. No, I'm not. I already hit pause, so I don't need to. I feel like I'm talking really quickly, and I wonder if it's because I've been around other people and sort of excited, and I don't know. It's interesting, isn't it? But I have this project which is finished, and I'm very happy that it's finished because it means I can focus on the other thing that needs to be done. But this is from this episode of Pom Pom magazine, edition. It's number 40, Dreamscapes. It's a really lovely issue. For me personally, it ticks a lot of boxes in style and layering, and slightly ethereal but semi-practical for my lifestyle. And this is the Cloudbow dress, which I marked, so I'm not going to have to flick too much. She says, I marked the pattern, not the pictures. I'd be surprised if you're a knitter and you haven't seen it, not because you have to, just because I think it's had a lot of social traction. Is that what you'd call it? But this is it. It's a dress but also a top pattern. It features a sort of peplum on the top. It's not so noticeable on the dress. And I previously knitted the dress already, but using... I'll put this down and explain, because I'll rattle it around. But using a single strand of mohair, and I made a few minor adjustments, like I didn't do the frill at the bottom of the dress. I adjusted the way I did the edging. I used an I-cord instead of the method written, and made just the tiniest adjustment on length and things. But my second version, I used yarn held double throughout the entire thing, and I'm very happy with the results. The reason that I used yarn held double wasn't because I wanted necessarily to make a thicker dress or heavier dress or warmer dress, but that is part of what it has gifted me also. It was that I wanted to use up different bits of yarn I had. They are by no means scraps. I don't really think there's that. I don't really have scraps. I don't like to think of having scraps anyway, because you can always do stuff with yarn. It's wild how much, you know, how playful you can be with those little bits. But I wanted it to sort of marl and fade in and out and be less stripy. So I opted to hold it double and change one colour throughout. She's big, but she's lovely. She has come out bit bigger, very different to my previous version, but I couldn't be happier. I ended up adjusting slightly. So the way you make the Cloudbow is you knit a panel for the front and the back, so you have two rectangles, and then you pick up, so say this is the rectangle, this is the edge, you pick up along the side and then down the side of the other piece, so you've got bits that go over the top of your shoulders, and then you knit outwards, and then you join in the round for the sleeves, and then you pick up underneath for the skirt. It's really simple to make. If you can knit and purl and do increases, you're golden. So it's a really good starter pattern, I would say. I don't know, I think some people were kind of misled into believing this was a challenging pattern, but it's simple. And once you get to the skirt and the sleeves, you're just a stockinette. It's just a nice coffee morning or potato chip. They were the two. That was not quite a portmanteau, but that sort of vibe. It's really gentle, easy knitting. It is on larger needles, but I like to have patterns that are on smaller needles and larger, so that I can switch between projects and give my hands a break, and I'm not knitting quite as much or for extended periods of time at the moment, so this was quite nice to knit on. I used a multitude of yarns. I think I've listed them previously, so I'll just go through a few. Ooh, that was a bit of a tongue twizzler. The darker pink you can see is alpaca from Triskelion Lot Yarns. Probably said that wrong. They're based in Wales, and I think it's called Antique Rose. There is Drops Ash Grey Alpaca Silk. The dark green that you can see is from Dinah's Home of Crafts. The Mohair Nylon, which is why I've put it into this project so it can be held double, in the Juniper colourway. There is a gorgeous light pink yarn, which is the mohair in this is from a Knitter's Homestead again, in the Rose Tea colourway, and then the colour underneath it, the other light pink, is from Back to Blighty, and it's such a lovely base, the Alpaca Silk Lace base. It's not brushed, it's spun, it's beautiful, in the Catherine colourway, which was dyed for me. I think that's the majority. But I'm really happy. The adjustments that I made was I knitted less rows out from where I picked up, because it was already bigger. I knew it was going to be bigger, so I just made that adjustment. I knitted the sleeves, I think, 2 rows less than what I'd previously done. I'm hoping to wear this in the summer for an event, so I have opted to do the short sleeves again, even though I was considering doing the longer ones. And I knit a bit shorter before I did the final frill along the bottom, so I did include one this time, so you can see it increases here, but I didn't make it nearly as long as what the pattern. Am I drunk? Can't be drunk. What the pattern recommended, but I'm really happy with it. I think if I was to knit these again, I would knit them so they're much closer to the underarm. I actually think because of the nature of it being fluff in the summer, it will be good to have that much space and let this area breathe in the summer. So, you know, just being real. So I did consider that when I went to cast this on, but I did think actually it will be nice. But if I do a winter version, I will absolutely bring it much closer up, and I think it will just be a bit more flattering and a bit more wearable and layerable. But I'm very happy with it. I've got an idea of what I might wear underneath it. I've just thrown on it over the top of my Rebel dress, and that's how I tend to wear my other version. I really, really love it. I love being able to wear double, triple layer of knits. I was wearing my Jessie May's bralette, my Rebel dress with my Cloudbow dress over the top with my hand knitted socks and my clogs, and I felt pretty cool. I was quite smug that I'd managed to make everything but my knickers, which is something that I'd really like to learn to do. But yeah, very happy. It's a super simple pattern. 10 out of 10 recommend. I'm sorry that the light's changing so much. The sun has come back out, which I'm sure you will have noticed, but it's lovely. I have a whip. I'm not going to show you the socks because I haven't worked on them. I'm knitting one project that I can't quite share yet. It's not a pattern of mine, but it's an exciting project that I'm really hoping to spend some time with this evening, because I'm currently on just a bit of stockinette. It's fine. It's not that I don't love stockinette, but it's just, you know, I wanted a little bit more excitement in my life. But yeah, in the meantime, this is the whip that I can show you that might be a bit surprising, but also might not be. So imagine Freddy Krueger meets Mod Sun, if you're into pop punk. His old lime and black hair meets Drop Dead Fred, her burglar jumper, meets, I don't know, it's basically all of those vibes. And sadly I took it with me to York and forgot to pack the extra yarn, so I got to a certain point and couldn't do anything else. But here this thing is, I really wanted to do something distressed. I want to explore and be a bit more, not experimental, but I don't know, continue to be creative, I guess is more of the right phrase. I had been talking about recreating this Vivienne Westwood jumper for a while with Alex. I'd been talking about maybe recreating a jumper that I had when I was, I think, 14 to 18. I wore this jumper to death, and it is just a black and red striped jumper. Nothing totally exciting. Every emo kid had one at some point in their time. I'm no different, and I wanted to make it slightly different, and what I thought I would do was, well, I'll explain what I wanted. So I wanted a jumper that was very simple, drop shoulder, that had 2 rows of drop stitches either side, and then went into a split hem. So the front and the back split, and then along the edge the drop stitches went to either side. I wanted the front to be shorter, the back to be longer, and I envisaged the sleeve having a drop stitch along the seam. She's not finished yet, but hopefully you'll be able to see that I've kind of achieved what I hoped for. So this is the front. It is quite a bit longer than the back. It is quite hard to show you when it's not on, so I do apologise. The side has the 2, I'm going to check the camera, sorry, so that you can see the 2 lines, which were more successful than I thought, and the sleeve also, hopefully you can see, has the line. So I ended up doing a I-cord bind off and keeping it really simple, no ribbing or anything on the sleeve, and I think I might do the same on the collar, as it's what I did on the back of on the edges too. I'm making this up as I go along. I kind of incredibly used to what my gauge is on fingering weight yarn and a mohair yarn or a double mohair yarn on the needles that I'm using. I'm using a 6.5. I tend not to talk about my needle size, and I know I've said it a lot, and I think a lot of other people do. We all knit so differently. It's really hard to be like, yeah, I knit it using this size, but do you know what I mean? I should give gauge, but again, I feel like it's so personal, and it should be figuring out the fabric you like. Like, this is maybe too dense for me now, I'm thinking. I love it, but I could have gone up a needle size and had it a little bit less. Well, I have to be careful. Like, I'm wearing it with a short sleeve top, because I think it's, let's say 18. It's 18 degrees in here, which isn't hugely warm, you know. So it's kind of okay, but I would be able to wear it a lot longer throughout the year if I knit it looser. So I feel like finding the right fabric for you is more important than, you know, me telling you the gauge that I like certain fabric in. Does that make sense? But yeah, so I knew kind of roughly what I wanted and how I wanted it to fit, and I've knitted quite a few drop sleeve jumpers now. So I just kind of, I knew where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do, and I just went for it, which I highly recommend doing. It is fun. It is probably maybe surprising for some that this is something that I might wear, but I do think I will wear it in the winter with leggings, my little rebel dress, so, you know, that sort of thing, and then in the summer with just a tank top and denim shorts, or hopefully some knitted shorts underneath. Would be very cool. That's my thought on it. And mohair. I had this jumper that I would love to have recreated that I gifted to my sister, and it had a very similar, definitely a very different vibe, but it had a similar shorter in the front, long in the back feel to it, but it had this big collar, and it was in a light grey cottony type yarn. And I wanted I've been thinking about what I can replace it with for quite some time, and I actually thought that I don't need anything so heavyweight, and now I've got my Unarmoured Defence cowl. I don't need a cowl because sometimes it's not appropriate for the weather, so this is just another really good layering piece for me. And I finally got around to doing it. So the green is 2 yarns held together. The one is this mohair from Hobby, which I will talk about a bit more in the future. I can't remember the colour, but I'm going to talk about this again next week, so I will either I'll try my best to put it on the screen. I'll take it over with me to the editing table. Yeah, it's really lovely yarn. Again, I haven't noticed the difference in quality with this versus some mohair. I would say it does feel softer and more fluffy maybe than the drops mohair. I think there might be a slight difference in the silk content. I can't remember. We'll double check. But I just want to be clear, they're both nice yarns. This is a lot more affordable. I think this is one of the fancier of the mohairs, but is kind of sits in line with Biche Bouche maybe, sort of £8 50 grams, whereas drops is about £3.20 if I remember. But that's the light green and the black drops mohair. And then for the fingering weight yarn, because I'm using a slightly heavier yarn with the black, I'm using Woolly Knits British Cone, the 100% British wool in the black colour. And then the other mohair I'm holding with this is the Juniper, which is what I used in my Cloudbow dress from Dinah's Home of Crafts. Again, like I said, it's got nylon in it and you can really feel it. It wasn't very nice either for me personally, again, personal, to knit with on its own, but held double, it's lovely, it's totally fine, and it's amazing how much the Hobby yarn softened this up actually. Like, I can't really feel that there's that nylon in there anymore, which is a dream. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this thing. It's a bit silly, but I actually think it's going to be very practical. I feel like it's something that I'm going to cozy up in a lot. And again, even though it's quite big and it will be quite warm because it's held double, it's mohair, it will be quite lightweight to put in my bag. And I think about this a lot. I'm an incredibly practical person. and I was talking about this with Alex, whilst I choose stuff and items for a certain aesthetic value, I guess the practical, the amount I put into the practical is really significant. So even if I really liked what something looks like, if it wasn't practical for my needs, I am not interested, you know. Things like the fern dress, which I haven't had time to work on for a while, is not meant to be practical, but I'm making it as practical as I can for what it is. If that makes sense. I do really value practicality, and being able to carry something so warm without weighing my back down is very important. So this is fun. I'm really happy that I decided to just do it, because for a while I was like, well, it's just silly to recreate a jumper from when I was young, but I think it's pretty cool. And again, like I say, I think I'm going to wear it lots, so that won't take me that long. I think I've got sort of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stripes to do on the sleeves, and then the collar, which, like I said, I think I'm going to just do an I-cord, so that won't take time at all. Yeah, really fun. Hey you! Little Audrey's come back. Are you going to sit on this one? It's raining. We've had sun, grey and rain. I wonder what else we'll get. Hopefully we'll be able to see a rainbow soon. And yeah, I finished. Now, I feel silly. I know this colour was called Sherlock. I couldn't find the tag for it. It kind of has bummed me out. It must be around somewhere, but I can't remember what it was, but it was sent to me with the name and the makeup of what it is. It's definitely silk, yak and merino, and I spun it all on a drop spindle. Here she is. I did show it on last week's video, but last week's video was a bit different, so I thought some people won't have enjoyed it, some people won't have watched it, so I thought I'd share it again here. But I managed to achieve a single ply that's balanced enough for me, I feel. I haven't knitted with it, but on my drop spindle, which is really lovely, it's single ply and 315 meters, yep, for 20 grams, which kind of, I don't actually know what is like normal for any, you know, like I don't know what's the go-to sort of, you know how people think, like, you know, you have a traditional 212 meters maybe for a DK yarn. I don't know what's like people's go-to for spinning at all, but I was quite surprised that I got that much yardage. I haven't re-skeined it actually, or put it on my niddy noddy to check after I washed it, so it might well be a bit more, it might be, I think it'll be a bit more, but that kind of blew my brain a bit. Like, that's a lot of yardage, no? For 20 grams of yarn. And you think of mohair being 220, 225 for 50 grams. No, for 25 grams. Yeah, so I was very surprised by this. And I'd wanted to finish this for a while. I just hadn't, I don't know why, I just forgot about my drop spindle when my knee went funny back at just after Christmas. And then I got quite excited about using my Pippi Polly spinning wheel again and just didn't. But I saw the drop spindle in the corner of my eye, which is why it's important for me to have things out so that I can just see them. And I was like, oh, I just need to finish this spin. So I did. I put some time and I took it away with us wherever we'd been and finished it. And I was so inspired by it that I did immediately pick something else up for my spindle. And that was last week. Where is it? So This would be perfect for one of James N. Watt's tops. One of the lacy ones. Either a look at my holes or a pure mesh pullover. But I decided, like straight away, I've just been really enjoying using a spindle. Been using my wheel when it's been nice outside, but like my time's been it's just taken up lately, so I don't feel like I've done as much spinning as I wanted to either, but it's fine. But not as much as I want to, because I feel like that's the wrong phrase. It's not, I've not done as much as I want to, it's just not been a priority as much, if that makes sense. I would love to have more time to do it, and that's coming. But other things have to take priority because that's life, you know? I don't know. Waffle! This is the bat that I'm working on with the drop spindle at the moment. It is called Rough Terrain from Fairview Fibres, and I think the way they offer up fibre is they'll have a gradient and you can decide how it gets sent to you. I had a little look last week. This was very kindly sent to me from a lovely friend. Thank you so much, Mary Louise. I just love this. I love this. I don't want to eat it though. And this is how far we are. I am going for ever so slightly a thicker spin on this time than I did with this. It's not much in it, but I've just gone ever so slightly, and the idea being is that I will 3-ply it. So using the chain method, I'm not a proficient or experienced spinner, but what that, if you know crochet, it's very similar to doing a chain in crochet, but every time you almost run out of a loop, you pull another loop through. So you get 3 strands of yarn spun together. The idea being that because this is a gradient bat, I'll be able to keep the colours consistent and sort of fade in much smoother than if I was to take 2 plies and ply them together without fussing too much ahead of time with the bat. Because I could have divided it in 2, spun the 2 halves, and then plied them together using a 2-ply method, like just 2-ply. That would have given me a similar result, but I haven't done too much chain plying, and I quite like the idea of this being a little bit more circular, so you'll get a more rounded yarn if you've got more plies. 2 plies kind of very limited, whereas a 3 ply is bouncier and going to have a bit more. I don't feel like I'm explaining this very well, but hopefully it's enough for you to understand what I mean. I've always said this, and I know it's probably boring, but I feel like I personally have to explain something 3 times for it to be clear. So maybe next week or the week after will be golden. I don't have to explain these things out loud sometimes, and I just feel like the right words slot into place and I get a really good grasp of what I'm doing, which is like, I noticed it a lot when I was teaching yoga, which is something that I'm still pottering on. I've got a scholarship in yin and I'm working on that still. I'm doing it slowly because I really want to get it ingrained into my brain but I would notice it in a class when I was teaching something for the first time in a long time, or for the first time. I would need 3 classes or 3 different times to express it, to practice. So I do often try and explain things to Alex first, so he gets the first run and maybe someone else gets the second run, and then I get to share. But you've now become my go-to, I'm afraid, so thank you. But yeah, I really love this drop spindle. I think it's a Bosworth. It now has a little nick in it because they do live up to their name. While I've been fairly good at not dropping it, it's inevitable. So I dropped it at the weekend. But I love this one. This spins so beautifully. It feels lovely, and it really does make me happy, and it's made a difference to my spinning, I think. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this, and I'm quite looking forward to seeing the colour change. Is that it? Do you want to come here? Little Audrey's like, yes, what? She says no. Yeah, so that's what I've got this week. It's going to be quite a busy week. I've got quite a lot on my plate at the moment, and I think quite a lot of people around me seem to. Yeah, I hope that whatever you get up to, it brings you joy. I hope even if there's moments where you wish you could do more or could have done more, or that you kind of are able to let it go. I hope that you're able to just be for a bit. That is very nourishing. I can't believe how important it really is. I'm hoping to add maybe a potluck dinner with friends once a week or fortnightly, because I feel like that face-to-face interaction makes a big difference. And I know that most of us understand this and most of us do have it on our radar, but thinking about it in a bit of a different way and sometimes having a reminder does help. But yeah, I hope that the little bit of nature at the end brings you a bit of joy. I hope that your making continues to bring you joy, and I hope to see you again very soon. Don't forget to love each other.